All right. Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready.
Okay, good. So today, the sources you sent over have us looking at Google again.
Mm-hmm.
This time it looks like it's all about this AGI thing everyone's talking about.
Artificial general intelligence, right?
Yeah, that's the one. And, well, it seems like things might be getting a little tense over there at Google HQ.
Oh.
Yeah, so from what I'm reading, Sergey Brin, Google co-founder, he sent out this email, kind of like a call to action for Google's employees.
Interesting. What's he saying?
Well, he's urging them to, really step up their game when it comes to this whole AGI race,
Yeah.
even going as far as suggesting get this, 60-hour work week.
Wow, that's a lot, especially for Google, right? I mean, they're known for that whole relaxed, work-life balance thing.
Right, exactly. It's pretty surprising to see this coming from Google. So that's kind of what we're going to be digging into today, this whole potential clash, between the need to compete in this, what do you call it, AGI?
AGI, yeah.
Yeah, AGI race and Google's, well, their kind of famous laid-back culture.
And we can't forget that this isn't just coming from some random executive. This is Sergey Brin.
Oh, yeah, he's not just some figurehead.
No, not at all. I mean,
Okay.
He owns like 25% of the company, right? So when he says something, people listen. This could be a sign that Google's maybe shifting its gears a bit, becoming a little more, what's the word, aggressive.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
So to set the stage for our listeners a bit, everyone's been following the AI scene pretty closely, so they're probably familiar with AGI, but maybe give them a little refresher. Like, what is it about this AGI that's got everyone so riled up?
Well, AGI, artificial general intelligence, it's not just like the AI we see every day, like your smart speaker or your phone's assistant.
Right.
This is different. Think of it like a system that can learn and do any intellectual task that a human can. Yeah, so it's not just about specific tasks. It's about reaching a level of intelligence where it can, solve problems, think abstractly, even be creative.
So like real thinking machines.
Basically, yeah. And that's why it's often called like the holy grail of AI, And right now, well, everyone's trying to get there first.
Yeah, it's a real race, huh?
It is. You've got OpenAI, Anthropic, even Elon Musk jumping in with XAI. It seems like everyone's trying to stake their claim in this new frontier.
And it sounds like Brin thinks Google needs to change things up if they want to keep up.
Yeah, that's where this email comes in. I mean, according to the New York Times, he's really pushing for a different work ethic at Google, wants people to be in the office more, put in the hours. And yeah, like you said, he's even suggesting a 60-hour work week.
60 hours, that's a lot.
It is. But he claims there's a reason for that number. Apparently, he got some feedback back in 2016 that suggested 60 hours is like the sweet spot for productivity.
Interesting.
And on top of that, he's talking about using AI to make coding more efficient, like, kind of bootstrapping the whole AI development process.
Okay, now that's really interesting. 60 hours, though, that seems like a huge shift from, the Google we all think of, with their nap pods and flexible schedules.
I know, right? They're practically the poster child for work-life balance. So to see this push for, well, essentially longer hours, it's definitely a surprise.
So what's he talking about with this AI bootstrapping thing?
It's basically the idea of using AI to, well, build better AI. Like imagine AI tools that can write code, optimize it, things like that.
Oh, so that would free up the human developers to focus on the more complicated stuff.
Exactly. And that could potentially really speed up the whole AGI development process, which, seems to be what Brin's aiming for.
So use AI to build AI faster. Makes sense, I guess. But I can't help but think back to, wasn't it last year that Eric Schmidt, the former CEO, he was kind of critical of Google's focus on work-life balance.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. He was worried that Google was, losing its edge because they were so focused on, all the perks and the flexible work arrangements.
Yeah, he even said something about successful startups working like hell and how they wouldn't let employees just waltz into the office one day a week.
Right. And it's not just Google, it's like this tension that's happening in a lot of industries, especially in tech.
Yeah, that makes sense. Companies are trying to figure out how to attract talent and keep people happy, but at the same time, they got to stay competitive.
It's a tough balance.
It is. But what I find interesting is that Brin, even though he's pushing for this more intense work ethic, he also warns against working too much, like more than 60 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he talks about the risk of burnout and even criticizes employees who just do the bare minimum.
So it's not just about working all the time. It's about finding that right level of, I don't know, intensity.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Like he wants people to be focused, dedicated, but not burn themselves out in the process.
It's like he's trying to find that sweet spot, where Google can be both competitive and still maintain some semblance of, well, their culture.
Yeah, and it's not just about the competition outside of Google, right?
Mhm.
You also sent some reports from the information about some internal friction at Google, like between DeepMind and the people responsible for integrating their work into actual products.
Oh, right, DeepMind. Now that's another piece of the puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah, tell us a bit about that. What's going on with DeepMind?
So DeepMind, they're like Google's AI powerhouse. I mean, they're the ones behind some of the most impressive breakthroughs in AI. Remember AlphaGo?
Yeah, the program that beat that world champion Go player.
Exactly. That was DeepMind. They're led by Demis Hassabis, and they're constantly pushing the limits of what's possible with AI. But there seem to be some challenges with, actually getting their work out of the lab and into real products.
So you have this incredible AI being developed, but then there's a disconnect when it comes to actually using it in something people can, actually use.
Yeah, that seems to be the issue.
So it's like external pressure from OpenAI with ChatGPT and all that.
Right. ChatGPT has really captured the public's attention.
And then internally, there's this struggle to bridge the gap between amazing AI research and actually putting it into practice.
Exactly. It's a complex situation.
It is, and maybe that's why Bryn feels like this culture shift is necessary, to try to get everyone on the same page and streamline the whole process.
It's possible. He seems to want a more cohesive approach where, the research and the product development are working more in sync.
It's not just about having brilliant minds working on AI. It's about making sure that their work actually, translates into something that gives Google that competitive edge.
Right, and that's the challenge, isn't it? How to make that happen.
So we have Bryn pushing for longer hours, more focus, a real shift in how things are done at Google. But is that really the right way to go? I mean, what will that mean for the employees, for the company culture?
That's the big question, isn't it? And one we'll need to explore further as we continue this deep dive.
What's interesting about this whole situation at Google is how it kind of mirrors what's happening in other industries too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like we're seeing all these companies, Amazon, AT&T, even Goldman Sachs, they're all encouraging employees to, come back to the office.
Right.
But it seems like a lot of employees aren't too thrilled about that. They've kind of gotten used to the whole work from home flexible schedule thing.
I can imagine. It's a big adjustment.
Yeah, so it's not just Google trying to figure out this whole work-life balance thing in the post-pandemic world.
Definitely not. It's like this big question mark hanging over a lot of industries right now.
Yeah.
How do you balance what the company needs with what employees want,
Yeah, it's tough. And you've shared some sources that really highlight both sides of the argument, right? On one hand, you have Bryn saying that, Google needs this more focused work ethic to win this AGI race.
Right. He sees it as essential.
But then there's also all this research that shows how working long hours all the time can actually backfire.
Oh, absolutely.
People get burned out, they become less creative. It's not sustainable in the long run.
That's a really good point. It makes you wonder if that whole startup hustle mentality, the one where you're expected to pull all-nighters and just grind all the time, maybe that's not the best way to achieve, anything, really.
Yeah, maybe those Google employees taking breaks for ping pong are onto something after all.
It's possible. There's definitely a growing body of evidence that suggests a more balanced approach might be the key to, real innovation. Some companies are already experimenting with things like shorter work weeks, more flexible schedules, even unlimited vacation time.
Wow, unlimited vacation time. That sounds pretty radical.
It is a pretty big shift, but the idea is that by giving employees more autonomy and control over their work, you end up with a more engaged workforce.
Makes sense. Happy employees, better results.
Right. That's the thinking, yeah.
But how does that all relate to this AGI thing? I mean, it's not like Google's building just another app here. They're trying to create something that could, potentially change the world.
Right. The stakes are much higher here.
So does this balanced approach really work when you're dealing with something as complex and important as AGI?
That's the key question. Brin seems to think that, with the AGI race, you need a certain level of intensity to keep up.
Yeah, especially with competitors like OpenAI moving so fast.
Exactly. I mean, look at ChatGPT.
Yeah, it seems like everyone's talking about ChatGPT these days.
Right. It's really made AI more mainstream, more accessible, and that puts pressure on Google. They need to show that they can also translate their AI research into products, into services that people will actually use.
So it's not enough to just be doing cutting-edge research. They need to show the world what they can do with it.
Exactly.
But if DeepMind is already building these groundbreaking AI models, why is it so hard to actually, integrate them into real products?
That's a good question. And honestly, there are probably a lot of factors at play. Part of it might just be that classic tension between research and development. Researchers, they're focused on pushing the boundaries, exploring the unknown.
Yeah.
But product teams, they have to deal with real-world constraints like user experience, safety, and, actually making something that people will want to use.
So it's not as simple as, oh, here's this amazing AI model. Let's just plug it into a product and we're good to go.
No, not at all. And with AI, there are all these additional layers of complexity. You have to make sure these models are ethical, unbiased, and safe for everyone to use.
That's a tall order.
It is. And then there's the challenge of integrating them seamlessly into existing products without compromising the user experience.
So we have this external pressure to compete, this internal struggle to bridge the gap between research and development, and then all these ethical and logistical hurdles to overcome.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is. And in the middle of all that, you have Brin advocating for this cultural shift, this push for more focus, more results. But is that really the answer?
That's what we need to figure out. Is pushing for longer hours and a more intense work environment really the key to unlocking Google's potential in the AGI race? Or will it lead to burnout, stifle creativity, and end up driving away talent? It's a real dilemma, not just for Google, but for a lot of companies trying to navigate this new world.
And it's a dilemma with consequences that go far beyond any one company.
Exactly. This whole situation really forces us to think about the bigger picture, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, we're talking about the future of work, the future of innovation, the future of AI itself. It's pretty huge.
It is. And that's what makes these conversations so important. We need to be talking about this, exploring the different perspectives, considering the potential implications.
And we need to remember that this isn't just a technological race. It's a societal one. The choices that companies like Google make today, they're going to have a ripple effect on all of us.
Absolutely. It's not just about who gets to AGI first. It's about how we get there.
And what it means for humanity as a whole.
Exactly. And that brings us to a really important question. What does it actually mean to win this AGI race? Is it just about technological superiority?
Or is it about developing AGI in a way that aligns with our values that benefits everyone?
That's the question, isn't it?
So where does this leave us? It feels like we're at this crossroads, not just for Google, but for the whole tech industry, right?
It does, doesn't it?
On one side, you have this incredible pressure to innovate, to move fast, especially with this whole AGI race heating up.
Right.
But at the same time, there's this growing awareness that, well, maybe pushing people to their limits isn't the only way.
It's not just about speed, it's about sustainability too.
Yeah, exactly. Finding that balance, thinking about ethics, about the well-being of the people actually doing the work.
It's a complex issue.
Very complex. And in the sources you sent, there's this mention of some alternative approaches to innovation. Like, are there companies out there doing things differently?
Yeah.
Prioritizing a more balanced, sustainable way of working?
There are, definitely. You're seeing a real shift in thinking, especially in tech. Some companies are trying out shorter work weeks, 4-day weeks, things like that, while others are focusing on building more inclusive, more supportive work environments.
So it's less about, grinding and more about creating a space where people feel valued, respected.
Yeah, and where they can do their best work without burning themselves out.
And is it working? I mean, are these companies seeing results?
From what I've seen, yes. Some of them are actually recording increased productivity, more satisfied employees who are actually getting more done.
That's pretty amazing. It challenges that whole assumption that longer hours automatically equal more output.
It really does.
Which brings me back to Brin and his 60-hour work week suggestion. I mean, even he's not saying to work nonstop.
He does draw a line, yeah. He warns against exceeding that limit because of the risk of burnout.
So it's almost like he's trying to find a middle ground, recognizing that pushing too hard can actually backfire.
It seems that way, yeah.
It's all about finding that balance. But what I think is most important here is that we're even having these conversations, right?
Absolutely. We need to be questioning assumptions, challenging old ways of thinking, exploring new
But
models.
not just in tech, right? This is a conversation that needs to be happening everywhere.
I agree. The development of AGI, it's not something that's going to stay confined to Silicon Valley. It's going to impact all of us.
So we need to talk about the ethical implications, the potential risks, and how we can shape this technology in a way that benefits everyone.
It's a collective responsibility.
Yeah.
It's not just up to the tech companies. It's up to all of us to think about the kind of future we want to create.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Mhm.
So to wrap things up for our listeners today, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
We have.
The AGI race, the internal struggles at Google, the bigger picture implications for society. But at the end of the day, this question of how we navigate this new territory, it's something each of us needs to think about. How do we balance innovation with, well, with humanity, with our values?
There are no easy answers. But staying informed, engaging in these conversations, that's a good place to start.
I think so too. Thanks for joining us today on this deep dive, everyone. We'll see you next time.